This special edition of our podcast may contain language and discussion of topics that are not suitable for all viewers.
I'm Sacramento County District Attorney Tin Ho. You're listening to our podcast, Off the Record, where we go beyond the headlines to share real case stories and give you a behind-the-scenes look. We'll dive into public safety topics and explore how our office is working to deliver justice, both in and out of the courtroom. Let's get started.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Off the Record podcast. This is a special feature on DUIs. My name is Courtney Martin. I am currently the lead deputy district attorney for the DUI, DUID, misdemeanor prosecution, education, and outreach program. Funding for this podcast comes from a grant through the Office of Traffic Safety through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Today we are joined by Sacramento Law Enforcement Chaplaincy Senior Chaplain Deborah Fontes and also Sacramento Police Department Lieutenant Will Connor. Thank you both for being here today. First, let me ask you if you can both tell us a little bit about yourselves and your role within your departments.
Yeah, I'm Will Connor. I've been on the Sacramento Police Department for about 24 years. I started in 2001. I was born and raised in the city of Sacramento. I attended Sac State and William Jessup University and have had the opportunity to work traffic and DUIs for much of my career. So I was a motor cop. I was an MCIU detective, which is like our mate team. And I've had the opportunity to teach both in the academy and in advanced officer training. And now I am the DUI and MCIU lieutenant in that I work the traffic and air ops division, and it's really the dream job. I get to work both as a riding motor officer as well as getting to work with collaborations with others,
And we say
outside entities.
Collaborations with others, what does that look like?
So we collaborate with the OTS, Office of Traffic Safety, with the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, in our DUI checkpoints, in our, we'll meet together and work on projects together for game plans and for media releases, things like that.
And I know from talking with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, they are so appreciative, particularly of their collaboration with Sac PD. And I know that's been really fruitful. And then Deborah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I have served as a chaplain for 15 years in the Sacramento area. I recently became the senior chaplain about 3 years ago. And so our passion is to serve officers, make sure that our officers are having resources for officer wellness and including their families and our community. And so we're very passionate about just supporting our community and our officers and all that we do. And so all of our training is in trauma response and crisis care. So what happens immediately after a critical incident, that's where our chaplains come in.
That's great. Well, in this podcast, we're going to focus specifically on DUI crashes. And so let me ask you both, what have you observed in terms of the emotional impact of responding to a DUI crash, specifically for first responders?
Well, from the first responder perspective, when we are called to the scene to either help the family or just be present for our officers, you're just seeing professionalism. Obviously, they're there to do a job. And so the role and care for officers comes after the fact. DUIs, obviously, the investigation takes quite some time. So we're just keeping eyes on them and making sure that we do the follow-up when necessary and when it's appropriate. But you do see the impact, especially when it involves families and children.
Mm-hmm. When you say doing the follow-up when appropriate, what does that look like?
It looks like showing up at their briefing, doing a check-in, offering them resources that they can take care of themselves and have the conversation with their families and how this call or any call has impacted them and how they can communicate effectively with their families as well.
When you say showing up the briefing, is it like maybe there was a crash event, it was a big deal, a lot of folks responding, and then maybe the next day showing up and checking in with the folks who were there, that type of thing?
Yes, absolutely. So we want to make sure that we're not singling out any one particular officer or employee, but that we're doing giving them an opportunity to hear what wellness looks like for everyone across the board. So even though an officer may not have had, hands-on that particular scenario, it still has an impact.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Lieutenant Connor, tell me a little bit about your perspective on this, the emotional impact of these DUI crash responses for first responders.
Yeah, officers respond to a lot of different types of crashes, and so oftentimes it's simply exchanging information. But when it comes to something like a DUI crash, there's a lot more to it. Obviously, we're looking at scene security evidence and wanting to make sure that we document everything because there'd be potential prosecution at the end of that. But on top of that, you end up having potentially great injuries, and there's a lot of violence that goes along with that. Your average person, the most violent thing that they're ever going to see is a car crash, and for officers, it has that same effect on them. So everybody brings something different into a crash or into their life, their history, and so previous collisions that they've been to or family members involved in things. That can be something that can be catastrophic to somebody, and for another officer right next to them may maybe not have the same effect. So that's why I'm very happy that we have the support of the chaplaincy and others, our peer support and things like that, where we're able to have some outlet to be able to talk about these things, have communication about our feelings.
Can both of you maybe speak to maybe a scene or an incident that has stayed with you in this realm of DUIs?
Specifically, this was some time ago, early on in my chaplain service when I first started, and there was a family that had been impacted by a DUI, so they were T-boned in an intersection, and they were a very young family. And I think just looking at the devastation that so many lives are impacted when someone makes a choice to drive impaired, and you're seeing the devastation, not just with that particular family, but it has far-reaching effect with our first responders, with the community, with other family members, civilians just happening to be there. And so they're all impacted and brought into that as well. And so I don't think people realize the totality of choices that they make when they choose to drive impaired.
So for the chaplaincy, you've mentioned services provided to first responders. Are there also services provided to victims, witnesses, their families?
Yes, so we have a broad range of resources for grief and bereavement. So we have very specific resources such as MAD and being able to connect people to that specific type of crisis and trauma. But we also provide that to our civilians in the community as well, in addition to our officers. And so with our officers, those resources are more specific to stress reactions that are common after a critical incident.
When you say stress reactions that are common, tell us a little bit about that.
So our body just, with the impact of watching or coming upon a scene such as a critical incident, such like a DUI fatality, are across the board, physically, cognitively, relationally, behaviorally, we're impacted, and our body responds accordingly to whatever it is based on our own filter and experiences. So, for instance, you might be a person that under stress, you are prone to headaches. And so being able to highlight that those reactions are normal, forgetfulness, isolation, anger, guilt, shame, all those factor into somebody reacting to a critical incident. And so with that, we're normalizing those reactions, but also providing suggestions in how to minimize those reactions under a critical incident.
And for you, Lieutenant Connor, anything stand out for you in your years of responding to these types of scenes?
Yes, I actually was involved in a collision where I was on a traffic stop and a DUI driver hit me. Although I'd say that the one that really impacted me the most was October 8th of 2016, and I can take myself right back there. And it was a long process on that one, but essentially it was somebody I could identify with. She was coming home from an overtime shift that she had volunteered to help out. She was stopped at a stoplight. It turned green. She started to go, and somebody came from her left side and essentially struck the driver's side portion of the car, killing her pretty much instantly, but then fleeing the scene. And so the matter of the ongoing investigation, working with the family, really having the first opportunity as an MCIU detective to work with MAD and the victim advocacy that they allow, or that they provide, was something that was very impactful to me. And I go back and still think about that family, and I know that they live up in the north area, fairly near where that is, where that collision occurred, so I'm sure that it's something that they think about all the time now. And here it's been nearly 10 years. But the I guess the positive on that is that was someone that we were able to bring to justice at the end. We were able to identify him, and he was prosecuted.
Yeah. This brings up, I think, something that relates to the chaplaincy. Does the chaplaincy provide death notifications, and can you speak to that process?
Yes, so we do. So when we're delivering a death notification, obviously we are trying to get to the next of kin and the family as soon as possible before they find out about it through social media or, through other means. And so the importance of getting there timely is really important. So when we are delivering that notification, obviously when people see chaplains arriving, they know that something is not right, but they don't know really what it is. It's almost as if their brain just a form of denial until we're able to give that notification. So we always ask if we can come in, that we have important information to share, and we make sure that they're taken care of as far as the practical assistance side, where they're seated, they're not standing, so that when we do deliver that information, that should anything occur, that we've kept them safe. And then we deliver that information as quickly as possible, but as compassionately as possible. So the process, is asking someone if they are that next of kin to that individual that has died, and we confirm some other information that we're given. And then once we have confirmed that, then we do let them know. So for instance, John, your son, Joe died today. And so we're trying to make sure that we deliver it as empathetically as possible, but also we really need them to understand that this has happened. And so the reactions are across the board, as you can imagine.
Sounds like you do death notifications in a variety of types of cases. Anything unique about DUI crashes in particular?
It's usually the shock that somebody, because often we hear, I just talked to them, we just saw them, this isn't real, how do you know? And so with the DUI, the impact, again, someone making a decision that could have been avoided entirely. And so with shock and denial also then comes anger, and they want justice. Why would somebody do this to their loved one?
The death notifications you're mentioning sound like they happen typically maybe in someone's home or place of work. Maybe both of you can speak to what it's like when you're on a crash scene and there's bystanders, witnesses, maybe family showing up. What is that like on the chaplaincy side, and then also on the law enforcement side, on the investigation side?
So on the chaplaincy side, we're not authorized to give out any information until we're directed to do so by either the coroner's office or law enforcement. So our role at that point is, even though family members are arriving on scene and they're saying, I know that's so-and-so, I know that's so-and-so, I know that's their car, that's what they drive, we are in that position just trying to keep them calm until we can actually get them more information. And so our chaplain role in dealing with trauma and crisis with our community members, it's really important that we're bringing calm and not chaos to them, and just trying to have conversation with them and explain to them the process for law enforcement, so law enforcement can do their job. And when they're ready to speak to that family or that individual, then we're able to be that liaison between the family and law enforcement.
How do you do that? Keep them calm in such a chaotic situation?
Really, it's just listening to them. And even though they're very emotional, and rightly so, I think it's important that we just give them that space to be able to say whatever they need to say, because it's not personal. They just have lost somebody that they love dearly. And so with that, we're just able to redirect and guide the conversation in a different way to let them know that they will have answers as soon as possible.
Yeah. What about the investigation side or the response side?
It's very common to have witnesses and bystanders, and we have to sort through that and understand who actually saw something and would be a witness for us, and who showed up afterwards. Very often we have family members and friends that show up, and it may be coworkers, it may be the parents or the children of people that are involved. And that's for both the potential drunk driver as well as for the victim. And I find that they'll have difficulties maybe with a cognitive piece, where they have seen such trauma or such violence that they have difficulty understanding it, or they only saw some of it. So then they start to try to potentially bridge the gap or fill it in. And so it's really important for us to separate witnesses, to keep people away from each other, so that they're not kind of coming up with a new answer based on what they heard from someone else.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do want to bring this back to the law enforcement side and what it's like for these first responders, because I think a lot of the public doesn't think about that side and the weight of that first responders carry with them. So Deborah, we've talked some about what services are provided. Maybe you can speak to how effective you think that is, or and even what additional resources could be provided to first responders, or things that could be done better to support them.
So in addition to the chaplain services, again, dealing with just what they're reacting to, and again, normalizing that everything that they're experiencing is normal and will subside over time, and providing self-care suggestions. But we partner with peer support teams. We have employee therapists or EAP, employee assistant programs, where they can get additional help should they need it. And so it's really just a matter of showing up and letting them know through your presence, through education and awareness, that if they need additional resources, that it's okay to ask for help. And I think in the law enforcement profession, unfortunately, sometimes the message is you have to be strong and you have to suck it up, if you will. Whereas vulnerability is really strength, to be able to be well and stay well for not just yourself and your career, but for your family.
Well, one of the goals of this podcast is to raise awareness, and our office, the DA's office, we do a variety of awareness raising activities. We have our youth academy, we have our citizens academy, we do school outreach programs. Maybe you both can tell me a little bit about what chaplaincy does and what about what the police department does also to raise awareness about DUIs, and that they are preventable 100% of the time.
Yeah, I would like to start by saying that I'm very happy with the Sacramento Police Department's support of our officers. It's really come a long way in the 24 years that I've been here, and that is that we have our peer support. We have an entire employee services unit that has EAP and has a variety of ways to help. And I think that's really important because everybody likes something different. For example, someone might like the religious aspect of things, or with the chaplains, or potentially doing yoga or some exercise or something like that. And there really isn't one fix for everybody. To answer your question about our outreach efforts, with our traffic division, we're consistently working with the 3 E's of traffic, which of course is enforcement, education, and engineering. So collaborating with our city engineers, as well as reaching out specifically by way of the media, creating videos, going out to schools. We actually have our Start Smart program right now, which is a teen driving class that we offer. It's free for everyone, and it really bridges the gap between parents and children to understand what is and is not legal for driving, and what are safe ways to take care of those things. The last piece is the engagement piece, and we really try and engage the public in that we are reaching out, asking what we can do for them. So it's not simply a matter of imposing policing or what we think is best, but really wanting to understand what would be a good partnership.
In the realm of traffic safety and DUIs, what does that look like?
So we have our DUI checkpoints, for example, and that includes a media release that lets everyone know that we're going to have those, and then it's really an education piece. DUI checkpoints are not necessarily meant to make DUI arrests as much as they are to indicate that we have an issue in this area and we want to talk to the public about it. Other ones with traffic would be for something as simple as bicycle safety, and that needs to start young because kids are riding bicycles, they're also riding scooters, and we're finding that we have a lot of incidents with really severe crashes with bicycles, and often, especially downtown, drinking and scooter riding.
That makes sense. Well, this has been a great conversation. I want to give each of you the opportunity to have any parting words about DUIs, the preventability, outreach, anything that comes to mind.
So for the chaplaincy, we also partner, we're also at the DUI checkpoints with our law enforcement, specifically SAC-PD, but also we're part of the Every 50-Minute program, in addition to the Real DUI Court Sentencing, to really try to reach parents and students in making better choices, and that there always is a choice. And the choice should be to, if you have been drinking or impaired in some other way, that there is always another option, and a family or an individual does not have to die today because of a choice that was made that could have been prevented.
Mm-hmm. For you, Lieutenant Connor.
Well, thank you to everybody that had a weekend this last weekend where they had an opportunity to celebrate but didn't drink and drive. It really does come down to personal responsibility. Some of the worst crashes that I ever responded to was a drunk parent or family member backing over their own child or family member in their own driveway. And unfortunately, that happened more than once. It's one of these things that is absolutely preventable. And the person that you could be hurting is yourself or someone that you love. So don't drink and drive.
Yeah. And when you mentioned this past weekend, it was Labor Day. Of course, it can be a weekend full of DUI incidents and fatalities. And I really appreciate what both of you said about the fact that this is always a choice. It's always preventable. So we hope our listeners share this podcast and that this information reaches the public in a way that's helpful and compelling. Thank you.
You've been listening to Off the Record. I hope this episode encourages you to stay informed and inspired. Follow us on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes content from our office. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time for more stories that matter.